Chapter 3. Dario Cox was gently awakened by Karen. "Wake up, man. We have visitors." The famous space explorer opened his eyes, blinked, and looked at the young woman. More precisely, he kept seeing her awake, as he had been dreaming about her. "What's happening?" he asked as he sat up. "The old man has come and wants to see you. Get up." Dario obeyed reluctantly. As his feet touched the ground, he looked at the young woman with a stern expression. Then he bowed slightly and stretched his powerful muscles in all directions, waking himself up. He flexed his arms and legs, bending at the waist, and then said, smiling, "Gotta stay in shape, doctor." She returned his smile and pointed toward the door. There stood the old man who was supposed to greet their arrival on the spaceship, holding something resembling a suitcase. Dario noticed that the man was now covering himself with a transparent helmet, resembling a protective mask of an unknown type and shape. "What's happening, host?" "I need to take you to the throne." "She wants to see you up close, Mr. Cox," said the man with a metallic voice. "Who is she?" Dario asked, raising an eyebrow. "I'll show you. Now put on this helmet, or else you won't be able to take 2 steps outside this chamber." Without any comment, Dario placed the protective helmet on his head as the old man instructed, and finally looked at Karen through the transparent material. He thought he noticed some anxiety on her face. "Don't worry," he said, looking at her. "I'll ask that they don't treat us with excessive disregard. Is a woman in charge of this ship?" The old man smiled in a very strange way and replied, Yes, of course, she is a woman. Come with me." Dario nodded to Karen and the German and followed the old man to the exit door, which opened automatically, leading them to the decompression room. The door closed behind them. But immediately, another door began to open in front of them. As Dario ascended behind the old man along the metal walkway, several periscope types passed by them, bent over, but no one said anything, as if they hadn't seen them. They then climbed a ladder, and a large front door led them to an oddly ornate room. There were also beings completely masked in their blue outfits. However, Dario observed that these beings walked more upright, more like humans, though slowly, barely moving their arms. They passed alongside a group of these men, who were bent over a very extensive table. There, plans in relief showed a true mishmash of plastic rolls drawn with strange numerals and others perforated whimsically. They looked like ancient papyri. But those busy beings paid no attention to the 2 Earthlings, who continued advancing. At the back there was a large door, and on either side, 2 silent guards extended their hands to signal them to stop. One of the mute, invisible Cerberuses pressed a bell on a nearby distribution panel, and a red electronic eye glowed above the doorway's lintel. Then the door slowly opened. When the door was ajar, the old guide indicated to Dario that he could enter, staying with the mute sentries. Dario didn't hesitate, and after taking a few steps forward, the door automatically closed behind him. He found himself in a spacious room, seemingly without a ceiling, illuminated by a powerful overhead radiation that made it impossible to see where the room's height ended. But Dario saw no one, nor did he perceive the slightest noise. However, the moment he entered that room, his head seemed to suffer a slight internal jolt, like weakness or fainting. It was as if someone had shaken his brain. And a voice that didn't come from anywhere, like his own conscience, echoed melodiously in his brain, in his ears, enveloping him with ineffable softness. "Come closer, man of Mavoda. Don't be afraid. You can now remove that mask, for the air here has been renewed for you." Dario Cox had found himself in countless similar situations, and it wasn't the first time someone spoke to him through the universal language of thought transmission, the only means of understanding with the privileged races of the universe. But on this occasion he was even more confused, for there was no person in front of him. However, something was strange at the back. Something that didn't have a human shape, and rather seemed like a dark machine. He confidently removed the protective helmet and inhaled the pure air filling the room. Suddenly, he saw something in the form of a veil stir until it became a rectangle covering the machine and its screen. Instantly, the rectangle brightly illuminated, and as if projected by an invisible camera, the blurry silhouette of a person appeared on the transparent screen. The vision gradually cleared until a figure, with a human appearance, sat behind a red glass table. The table's surface was suspended similarly to the suspended tables on Earth, and the being with blurred features kept its legs beneath the table. Apparently, it sat on a suspended chair as well. Finally, the vision became clearer until Dario could see a woman. But what a woman, holy heaven! Dario was moments away from falling to his knees. Something in his reflexes unconsciously stopped him. However, he was left stunned, not knowing what to say or think. And when he managed to recover and control himself, with the intense desire of his strong will, the pleasant memory of the beautiful Karen was completely overshadowed, dead, because the woman projected on the singular television screen before him was 1,000 times more beautiful, 1,000 times more attractive and suggestive. She was a magnetic woman, a strange goddess. Dario was so entranced that he didn't notice the screen beginning to disappear, and that the woman was now standing in front of him, in flesh and blood. She wore a semi-transparent armor, very tight on her sculptural and perfect body, whose beauty of lines, classically Earth-like, is better left unsaid, as imagination is poor and petty to describe the inconceivable. Her legs were clad in the thinnest gauze, similar to a varnish, and she wore short, space-type pants, held at the waist by a metallic belt, from which hung a device enclosed in an oblong, elongated and flat box, at the center of which shone something like a luminous eye. She also had some switches and contact levers on the box, which she operated with her long, sharp hands, and Dario sensed they were ordering him to sit down. He obeyed, although the initial sensation of falling instantly faded, as a flat and elastic surface had appeared behind him. And Dario Cox found himself sitting on something floating in the air. Are you comfortable? Don't be surprised that I'm speaking to you in your own language. The truth is, I'm not speaking to you but transmitting my thoughts. I've learned to converse while thinking. This isn't strange to you, is it, Mr. Cox? In a way, yes, although I already knew. Tell me, Dario, what do you think of the beings from my distant world? Have you ever seen any in your travels through the limited solar system? No, never. But judging by the one I have before my eyes, they're astonishing and marvelous, exclaimed Dario, excited. I suppose that must flatter me, Dario. The women of my world also possess vanity, don't doubt it. Although frankly, I must tell you we're not as you see us, she laughed pleasantly. I've decided to take this external form, to appear more agreeable to your eyes. If you saw us as we truly are, you might change your concept of astonishing and marvelous, as you just said. You're not like that? Dario asked, sitting up. Naturally not. What can you expect from a race that has been living for billions of years? Everything evolves, even the human organism, adapting to new forms of life. You know this too. She laughed pleasantly. I decided to take this external form, to appear more agreeable to your eyes. If you saw us as we truly are, you might change your concept of astonishing and marvelous, as you just said. Can you adopt the appearance you want? I can, to a certain extent. I perform something similar to the theory of molecular disintegration, though with slight inversions. We only have minds and machines to assist us. You've already been able to observe our mastery of anti-gravity, neutralizing speed and inertia at the same time. This is a neutral force applied to our service, consisting of transforming molecular attraction into neutralization, or neutral attraction force, which paralyzes purely mechanical external movement. Very interesting, Dario commented. But I'm not a technical brain, and I don't understand any of these subjects. I suppose you didn't have me call you to tell me these things. Yes, I did. Come closer, please, she pleaded. And Dario felt his seat moving towards the table behind the woman. He dragged his feet across the floor and suffered no harm. The moving seat stopped in front of the table, and Cox leaned on it just as the woman did, looking at her through those deep and mysterious eyes. Her allure was increasing, and Dario continued examining her from her toes to her hair, for up close the red glass of the suspended table was transparent and allowed him to contemplate the form and movements of that artificially molded body, of perfect harmony, even the green color of her painted lips. Yes, everything about her was perfect, according to the most refined taste of modern makeup. Her eyes were light blue, her eyebrows amber, and her hair between red, pink, and blue. That old man who accompanied me. He's a human like you, whom we captured a few years ago when we had the misfortune of arriving on Mavoda. He's addicted, but he's vile, like many men of this world. I know very well that the condition of Mavoda's men isn't the same in everyone. And I love this. It forces you into a daily struggle, into constant vigilance. Yes, it's a mode of perfection like any other. We acquired this habit through teaching. Our pedagogical methods are infallible. We all learn the same way. Moreover, telepathy protects us from deception. There are many things I can't understand, Dario said when she finished teleconversing. Can you explain them to me? Yes, I have no problem, Dario. You're a good person. If I had some men like you here, I'd try to return to my world to change certain ancestral systems I don't like. Can't you go back to your world? No, for many reasons, she said sadly. This craft we're in wasn't built on Zakla. We've lived several years in an Australian desert trying to rebuild the spaceship that brought us here. Rust destroyed ours. We call this an acclimatization problem. The social problem reigning on Zakla is very different. I fear we're doomed to perish here unless... With what intentions did you come to Earth? And yours to go to Mars and Venus? Exploration, research, and conquest, isn't that right? No, let's say civilization better. Perfectly, then I'll use your cliché. We came to civilize as well. Don't deny that traveling for so many years through space, visiting a million Vedas, is synonymous with civilization. I can't believe it. But I understand that they killed a man in Sydney. Q Paul was a scoundrel, Dario. He's been dealing with me for a long time, and when I refused his perverse machinations, he got angry and exposed us to your authorities. You see, I'll recount the facts because I'm well aware that you don't know a word about all this. And what little you know are false impressions. I'll start when the Valther, an extragalactic exploration spaceship from my remote empire sent by Citizen Sando, arrived in this system 3 years ago, after having traveled over 1,000 worlds and cataloging them. We visited worlds with analogous climates. But a malfunction caused by the rust from the water vapor contained in most of these worlds' atmospheric envelopes attacked our translational mechanisms, and we were plunged into the sea. We fell here, on Mavoda or Earth, and back then we knew little about Earth's geology. The salty water caused severe damage to our ship. It was necessary to abandon the Valther near the Australian coast and take refuge inland, saving some of the most important devices by isolating them, wrapping them in waterproof fabrics, the same clothing all my servants wear. Then we sought help and found it in some explorers. They kept the secret because we paid with something we can easily produce. Mason was the first man I saw from this Earth, that old man who accompanied you here. Mason didn't want gold but power. However, Hugh Paul believed that power lay in wealth, in gold, and he remained loyal to us until he conceived the fantastic plan to deceive everyone, us and you. Through the gold produced by my atomic alteration machines, he intended no less to buy all official organizations and make himself the owner of everything in the planetary system. He wanted to rule on Earth, Mars, Venus, the colonies of Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter. Naturally, we didn't care much what he did with the gold we gave him, as he in return helped us reconstruct our Valther II, this ship we're now on. But he ended up betraying us too, to enjoy certain secrets that can never be revealed to an Earthling. And it got worse, he killed Sando, my husband. Upon arriving here, the woman paused and stared fixedly at Dario. She clasped her hands resignedly and her eyes shone with tears. Then she continued with a trembling voice. Naturally, I ordered his death. And one of my servants, I believe, has succeeded. Although his death wasn't clear, as many things happened in a very short time. My intervention in this matter, for example? Dario asked. The gravity of the case had been apparent for some time, and our presence on Earth was known to the high state bodies, whom Hugh Paul had informed in his own way, being one of the information agents of the Australian Federation. Keep in mind that Paul has organized a gigantic plot and has been paying with real gold for over 2 years. I don't know exactly how far he has bribed state senators, nor do I know who is on his side and who is against. But I'm sure you're a true patriot, and your ideal is to fight against corruption. I'm not sure. But I suspect that kind of person is a fraud, a renegade, or something like that. I'd like to know who she is. Listen, Cox, the German continued, it's simple. Hugh Paul, whom you've been ordered to contact in Sydney, fought in vain to clarify this mystery. But apparently, he must have discovered something important, as he was recently killed by simply blowing his head off with a low-powered atomic shot. However, it was assumed that you could follow the lead found by Paul, starting from Sydney. That's why we were urgently asked to meet with you. Operation Bait, ordered by General Sutton, was carried out with a bit of discreet indiscretion, and the result has been that these beings have come out to meet us exactly as Sutton expected. And has my boss forged this stupid plan? Stupid, no, Mr. Cox, exclaimed Schwartz. I think it is. Why should I go through subterfuges with you? General Sutton has taken command of the United Nations Military Coordination Service, exclaimed Karen in turn. That can't be, protested Dario vehemently. How could Sutton devise such a bundle of nonsense? Besides, Clark would have called me to his office and given me explanations before acting. You all have proven to me to be stupid, inept, and moronic, or maybe I'm the idiot, unworthy of the old trust. Don't count on me for anything. And while these frogs dressed in blue are preparing the altar for our Holocaust, I plan to take a cushioned stroll before continuing to listen to nonsense. Dario, with a yawn, headed to one of the bedroom doors. Upon opening it, he found what he expected, a large, very comfortable bunk bed. And without relying on anyone, just as he was, still dressed in his flight suit, he lay down on the soft bed, setting aside his space protection helmet. Shortly after, he was sound asleep. In the adjacent room, the Russian woman was wringing her hands and pacing rapidly around the central table. Everything has been meticulously recorded, Karen, said Franz Schwartz, satisfied. If we get out of this mess, I'll build another Thomason and give it to you. I'd like to be able to explain its microcellular and photoelectronic functions to you, so you can understand its multiple applications. Everything you hear and see is recorded, imprisoned in its hermetic capsules, and then allows it to be analyzed in the laboratory. This is worth millions, Karen, millions. Why doesn't that man believe us, Franz? She interrupted him. Bah! Don't pay him any mind. These fighters are very special. They distrust everyone by nature. But I know Cox is quite the gentleman. You just have to look at his face. You'll see how he finds a way out of here. Besides, your other two companions, Tyrrell and O'Brien, are alerted. We could hear them through the shortwave radio emitter installed in the DELTA-5. We know that was the action plan. And why didn't General Sutton mention Dario Cox? She asked. I have such a poor memory, Karen. Dario Cox has very personal work methods, and Sutton wants things to be this way. If Cox had been aware of everything from the start, maybe the outcome wouldn't have been the same. As for the DELTA-5, logically, once the anti-gravity ceased, it would have continued flying or fallen into the sea. One way or another, those guys from the Hawaii aerial fleet would have already set in motion. I understand they act in a lightning-fast manner. That's what General Sutton said. Tyrrell and O'Brien will soon be around us, looking for a way to get us out of this jam. And with Dario Cox among us, the solution won't take long to emerge. Yes, exclaimed Karen, annoyed. You see what that conceited Superman did, fell asleep. I don't trust any of them. Obviously, I don't know them, but I doubt we'll end well. For what it's worth, I already said goodbye to my little garden house in Casavoro Yellow. There, I had snowflowers in the greenhouse. Have you ever seen red snowflowers, dear Professor? The woman couldn't continue her talk. Something sounded shrill abruptly, and a strange voice through speakers began to emit strange commands. Dario saw the woman quickly pressing the buttons on her waist box, and the central eye light continuously changed colors. After several minutes, she hurriedly got up. Cox mimicked her and saw alarming signs of excitement on his face. "You must return immediately with your companions," she ordered. And before Dario could realize what was happening, a thick mist interposed between them, and he was violently pushed backward, though he didn't lose his balance. He saw the mist condense into the screen that previously showed the exotic woman. Then everything disappeared from his view, leaving only a kind of machine retracting into the background, as if driven by an invisible force. Was that beautiful woman a machine? He didn't have time to respond, for the back door opened, and the old man named Mason entered shouting, "Come on, Cox, put your protective helmet back on and return with your companions because the danger is great. We're being attacked by thousands of Earth spacecraft."